There once were two guys living in China, and they discovered that they did not like vagina. Now they're having butt sex with each other. And this podcast is an excuse for their affair. Two guys, one China. Check it out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two Guys,
One China.
I'm Daniel Clark.
My name's Jager.
And today we have a special guest. We have
a friend of ours. His name is Ollie. Ollie, you want to say a few words?
What's up? I'm Ali. Open all day like 7-Eleven. What's good?
What's good?
So we think he's going to be like our new Jamie and Joe Rogan, right? He's probably going to be here consistently, but we're too lazy to change the art. So it's still going to be Two Guys, One China. But
yeah, so if you hear someone say, pull it up, Ollie, then you'll get the reference.
yeah.
You could also like draw me in. Like you could draw like a fat little like black carp or brown Cartman like, into the art with like the computer. Remember that episode?
Yeah.
Do you remember the World of Warcraft episode?
Where
Okay.
you're just like, Mom, bring food, bring hot packets.
So I think today's episode is going to be me and Jago have both been living in Shenzhen now for 1 full year. So we're just going to talk maybe today about our experiences and the pros and cons of Shenzhen, and I think as well like try and sell Shenzhen to people that are interested in coming here, and like why you should come here, because it is do you guys enjoy living here?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I would, now that I've lived here for 1 year, I would like to tell people, like, for example, if you want to go to like a super Chinese city and learn Chinese and learn the culture, then don't come to Shenzhen.
Yeah, don't, especially to Sherko as well.
Yeah, like in my experience, one of my friends put it really well where he said Shenzhen's like China light.
Yeah,
It's like, it really is, because you get here and like I have friends that have lived here for like 8 years, don't speak a word of Chinese at all.
which is wild, right? Like when you think of living somewhere for like 8 years and you don't speak any Chinese.
Yeah.
I mean, Ali's Chinese is pretty good. Would you say?
Yeah, it is good, but living in Shenzhen, especially Shekou, Nanshan district, or Futian district, where we are. There's a lot of foreigners, but all of the locals here, they speak English. So like, I go to the coffee shop and I'm like, 我要喝美式咖啡 at Starbucks.
What's that?
Make sure was
when I order an Americano at Starbucks.
Oh, make war.
Yeah. All the when I say that, the barista is like, hot or cold. I'm like, and I'm like, duh, and they're like, medium or large, and I'm like, bro, come on, I'm trying to learn.
We had that the other day, didn't we? When we went to the coffee place.
Oh yeah.
And you ordered something. And
I had like an interview at Daniel's work. He was kind enough to invite me to maybe get interviewed for a part-time there. And I noticed like I went up there and I was speaking to him in Chinese, and it was weird because he spoke English first, which typically you're like, okay.
The barista?
The barista. Well, the guy working the cashier thing.
Okay.
So he spoke English first, and then I would say something in English and he'd make this face like, I was like, dude, okay, like so I started speaking to him in Chinese, and I told him like, well, yeah, bing the, and he's like, okay, ice, and I was like, yeah, that's what I told you, and I was like, okay, what size? And I was like, Zhongbei, which means like medium. Motherfucker brings me a small. I'm just like, okay, great, like, and so it's like, to some degree, it's like, I don't know, either they're not always paying attention, or like, I don't know. I found in my experience, like, the more Chinese I know, but then people look at me. If I start speaking Chinese, like I noticed this when I first got here, I would say something that all my friends were like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly how you pronounce it. But the fact that you look like a foreigner and then you speak Chinese to a Chinese person, they're just like, this motherfucker is speaking some foreign language that I've never heard.
It throws them off.
Yeah, a little bit.
It throws a lot of people off. I think it would be like, even going back to what I just said, I think if we were in like a smaller city and we spoke some Chinese, they'd be like, oh, this foreigner knows some Chinese. But here in Shenzhen, they're just like, why is he not speaking English?
Especially the places we go to, right?
Well, do you remember when we went to the bar and there was the Irish guy?
Yes.
So this is kind of like the flip side of that, is that there was this Chinese guy working behind a bar, and we just done a language exchange. So I was like trying to use my Chinese, and he was trying to speak to me in English, but I kept trying to speak to him in Chinese. But was his Chinese not that good or something?
So it's not that. So so that night Daniel was feeling himself a little bit, rightfully so, because there's a point when like, because I first started learning outside of Sheko, which is where you really need it. Because in Sheko, most people are like, they'll speak a little bit of English, right? But there are certain places like where, when I was living in Futian, Lohu, Baoan, which are like, for those that are listening that don't know, they're like not necessarily the outskirts of the city, but it's a little bit further away from where most of the foreigners are, right? So like if you're considering like, what's a city that I know well? Like Los Angeles, like downtown Los Angeles, that would be like Sheko or Futian. That's like the downtown area. And then the valley, which is like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes away from the city, that's where there's more kind of local people. So this night, Daniel was feeling himself because he started to hit a groove with his Chinese. And at the language exchange, he's talking to girls and they're like, oh, haha, so cute. And so he's like, yeah, I got this shit. And he was a little, that wasn't that night, that you weren't that drunk. But we get to this bar, and the guy working behind the bar, unbeknownst to Daniel, because Jagger and I spoke with him first, and then Daniel comes a little bit later, and he's like, oh, whoa, yeah. And this dude's like, what? Like, he's like, and in English, in perfect English, he's like, I don't know what you're trying to say. Can you please just speak English? And, and Daniel just like insists. He's like, but
I think it was like Chung Dao Bing Cha.
Something like that.
Long Island iced tea.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
And it was funny because later on, Jagger and I were talking to him outside, and he is like a co-owner / manager of the bar. Really nice guy. Lived in Ireland for 18 years. So he's really like an ABC. And so he's looking at Daniel like, what the fuck? Does this guy think that I'm just some idiot?
It was from a naive place in my heart, I think.
Oh, it was innocent, totally.
Yeah.
It was just
But
hilarious.
what else was funny is we told Daniel, we said, dude, just speak to this guy in English. And Daniel was like, no, it's okay. We're like, no, I think he would prefer you to speak in English. And Daniel just turns around and speaks Chinese.
I was in the zone. But yeah, that's funny.
That's all good. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. You have to try. Like, I haven't been trying recently. I noticed that when I do try to order a coffee, it's like a little bit off because I haven't been consistently doing it.
Yeah.
But I think we've all made efforts ourselves, right, to try and learn the language to some extent.
Way more so than some people, correct?
Right.
And that could probably go for some people in any city.
Can I just
in
ask,
China or any foreign country? I would say.
Why did you both want to learn Chinese? Because I feel like people have different reasons.
Me, I would say one reason is I'm here.
Yeah.
The second is I don't really speak any other languages, so it's like, why should I not? I should at least learn a little bit, just so that could help me in future endeavors of language learning.
Yeah. Ali?
It's interesting you ask because, like, remember how you were saying some people don't ever consider it as they're just like, oh, I just don't speak Chinese, so I'm not going to try to learn.
Yeah.
I feel like there's, like, different kinds of people that you'll meet here. But for me, when I got here, I was always of the mindset of like, well, if I'm going to be here for more than a year, I have to learn it, right?
Yeah,
that was my
yeah.
assumption, right?
Yeah.
So then as I got to know, now I can like I always tell people when they say like, oh, how'd you learn? Or like, your Chinese is okay. I'm like, look, like there's certain things I can talk about. But if someone was to ask me to like go to an art gallery and describe the surrealist depiction of certain paintings, I'd be like, okay, this is very nice. I like it. You know, so it's like there's these like detailed conversations become difficult, but
so you're intermediate, right?
I don't know.
I would say maybe like low intermediate.
Yeah, maybe.
HS.
Like I would just I describe it as functional, right?
Yeah.
But then what I was gonna say that is interesting is when I first got here, like within my first year, like where you guys are now, I was the same way where I was really like pushing, like how Daniel is now, like pushing to really get there and learn. Then I got to a certain point where I was like, most things I want to do in my daily life are fine. Then I got a Chinese girlfriend. And I used to kind of crap on my friends that had been here 5 years and couldn't speak like I could. I'd be like, haha, common denominator, they all have Chinese girlfriends.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, I'm like, baby, can you handle this one? Like, and she used to be like, no, you can do it. I'm like, yeah, but now she's just given up. She's like, whatever, I'll handle this. Like,
usually if you have a Chinese girlfriend, they always really want you to learn Chinese. Because a lot of Chinese girls will say to me like, I'm funnier in Chinese than I am in English. Like,
that's interesting.
Have you ever heard that before?
Like, it's interesting, but on the contrary, the girl I'm talking to is from South China, and she just wants to speak Cantonese.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she just wants to speak Cantonese to her friends and to the local places. So
It's very, very.
Leho.
I always describe Cantonese as it just sounds like two roosters fucking. You know what I mean?
It definitely does.
And it's like if you want to live in Hong Kong and learn Cantonese, it's like you try to speak Cantonese to someone in Hong Kong and they're like perfect fluency in English. So like everyone here speaks English, man.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh fuck.
Especially
They don't like
with if you don't know, Mandarin is a tonal system and it only has 4 tones, whereas Cantonese is tonal as well and has I think 7 or 6
Six or
tones.
seven,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's 7, and then you know how in Mandarin there's the 5th, which is like ma.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's like 2.
Yeah,
kind of
I know
like
what you're
that.
saying.
So there's like
Yeah.
9 kind of.
In when I learned Vietnamese, there was like 1, which is when if there's like the letter H, it'll have like a dot under it, and it'll be like. And so I know, like I'd always ask my TA, I'd be like, "How do you say this tone again?" She'd be like, "Bah." I'm like, "Sorry, one more time." Bah.
So can you
It's so funny.
Excuse you.
How do you say like hello in like
Xin chào,
Xin Chao?
Xin chào,
Can you say like a sentence for us?
Dip chai lai cho,
What's
which
that
means it's like a colloquial diss. It means like handsome like a dog.
But
But like if you say that to people, they'll be shocked that you know that because it's like a colloquial.
Those are always like good ones to have in the pocket. Like,
Yeah, especially when you're at a bar and you say
Yeah.
that, like, because I wouldn't say it to them. I'd point to myself, and they'll be like, "No, dep chai, like handsome." Oh,
mine in
jeez.
Chinese is dan shango, which is, well, I don't use it anymore. But so it's like a joke that a lot of times girls will say to each other, which in Mandarin just means like single dog. And it's
Right.
just, oh, I'm single. Oh. And like, I used to, and I'm such a like idiot. Like I'm always thinking of like, why is this a joke? Why is that funny? And then I started to realize like, because in China, there's so many stray dogs that you'll see everywhere, right? And a stray dog doesn't always look happy, but a dog with an owner is always like, oh my God, cool. I'm walking around. This is fun. I get to take a shit wherever I want.
Mickey Mouse.
Right. But so it's like a single dog, like you look sad or you're on your own. Like no one's going to take care of you.
Oh.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. And I could see how you could use that in the wrong circumstances as well.
You don't want to call a girl that, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying then, so you were with your Chinese girlfriend, you were kind of okay at Chinese, and then was there a specific point? Did you the same, or did you try and learn more because of her?
Well, for a while I was like, well, not really me. She was kind of pushing me like, let's just start having at home full conversations in Chinese.
Yeah,
And it's like egregiously hypocritical, but I'm like, no, it's too much work. And she's like, that's what I'm doing with English when I talk to you, asshole. And I was like, you got a point there. But after a while, it just became, I was just stagnant. And then like at this point, if I wanted to learn more, it would be more because like wanted to work here longer or do like there would have to be some like other like altruistic, like intrinsic reason for me to want to learn more. But now I'm just lazy.
And also earlier, Daniel was saying something like, he was asking, are you intermediate? And one thing you can look for if you want to know your level in Chinese is the HSK system. So it's just like a measurement goes HSK 1 through 6. But the problem, in my opinion, is like you could be like HSK 4, like our friend Isaac. You can be really good and communicate your way around China, but then you look at a menu and you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
speaking is one thing, but there's no alphabet, so you can't just like look at German and be like "Way geet." You can't look at Spanish and be like "Hola."
Yeah.
You have
I love how you have
to.
the same accent for every language.
You have to look at a single character and be like, "Oh, that's Nan."
Yeah.
And you have to
Yeah.
know the tone too. So there's nothing that signifies the tones when you're looking at a character. Sorry, oh, that's Nan. That's Shan.
Right.
You have to memorize it.
That's
Pretty
like
much, yeah.
the most important thing I think for language learning is to know your goal, right? Because for me, I just want to be able to communicate and speak. And so they have pinyin, right? So you said there was an alphabet. So they do have a Romanized alphabet
Yeah,
Correct.
that
right.
we basically, I think
Correct.
we all use. And so like when we type in WeChat, I can type the pinyin, so the Romanized words, and then the characters will pop up. So
Yeah.
it looks like if I showed my friends back home and they'd be like, yo, can you write Chinese? No, I can just write pinyin. But
Yeah,
it looks
so-
like I
yeah.
have no idea what it says like when the Chinese characters come up.
Correct. When you're using the pinyin, you just type in the alphabet essentially,
Right,
and it
yeah.
pops up the characters automatically. So I can type in "Wa Jidao," and I don't know the characters, but I just click on the first one. Right.
It does work. That does work.
Yeah.
I used to do that for
Yeah.
locations. Dude,
Just-
Jagger's
Yeah.
so funny because like there was a time that we were going to. There's a place called Dongjiao Tao, which is very close to where we live, and we were going for food. And I was like, oh, this Muslim noodle place is really good. And Jagger's kind of looking at the characters. And I'm terrible with characters, right? And Jagger's like, oh, that says Chinese noodle beef. And I was like, that's correct. Like, how'd you know that? He's like, oh, no, dog. I just learned food. I was like, shit, me too. That's the only characters I know. It's like food, America, China, like pork. Like, that's it.
That's it.
Do you think now, like, if you guys go home and you take your friends to a Chinese restaurant, you can like flex?
Story time. So when I went and remember how I got here like almost 3 years ago now. Like it'll be 3 years in about a month or two. But the first time I came was for a business trip, right? So I came from Los Angeles to China, was here for a month. In that time, I learned like maybe 5 phrases, right? Like, where are you from? Ninalida, like, I want this, right? So I come back after that month, and I'm such a dork. Like, I was like pushing my friends, like, yeah, let's go get Chinese food, and like, literally just for the purpose of being this like pretentious douchebag that like learned 4 words in Chinese, right? So then we get to this place, and we get to the Chinese place. It's in downtown, in Chinatown. I'm stoked, right? And so waiter comes over, and he's like, you know how Chinese waiters, what you want? Right? And so I was like, well, actually, wo yao jigga. And he just looked at me like, what? I was like, wo yao jigga. And he's like, you want the noodle with beef? And I was like, doi. He's like, why you talk like that? And I was like, what the? I was like, well, it's Mandarin. He's like, oh, we from Hong Kong only speak Cantonese. So now I look like I got my dick in my hand in front of my friends. They're like, wow, you speak Chinese, huh, bud? And I was like, yeah, we can just go to the fried chicken place down the street. It's okay. So let's get the fuck out of here.
Do you think though if you went home and you ordered, as long as it's not like Cantonese, do you think you could order a takeaway on the phone?
Well, so
No.
one
In
of the
Chinese.
I could,
If
but
I was
it's-
there in person.
I could, but it's one of those things of like most, like I think it's maybe it's different in England, but definitely in America, especially in California, like and all the way up to Canada, like Vancouver, San Francisco, LA, San Diego. They have these big Chinese areas, but it's that mass exodus from Hong Kong in the 80s.
Yeah, actually, you're right.
So, and I think there's more like mainlanders that moved to England than there are.
No, we got a lot of Cantonese as well.
Yeah,
Hong Kong.
okay.
Right.
I remember correctly, like the one next to where I live is Hong Kong, and then the other one I know is Hong Kong as well.
Another fun fact: all the food in the States, like kung pao chicken, sweet and sour chicken, sweet and sour beef, all of those dishes are at Chinese restaurants, but it's actually more so a Cantonese style dish, right? That's
Yeah,
right?
no, you're right.
Yeah.
So that was one of my biggest disappointments when I got here. I was like, dude, I can't wait to have like real Chinese orange chicken.
Yeah.
And you get here and they're just like, what the fuck is that, dude? Like, it's like not really their thing.
I think that's a good segue then. So like we've been living here for a year. What do you think of the food?
Like I really. That's
I love
not.
cough, by the way.
That's not.
That's
a
all you had
negative,
to say.
huh?
all you had to say was,
So I really enjoy hot pot. So hot pot is like where they bring you uncooked meat or vegetables, and there's this hot pot, literally this pot of water and spices and oil and peppers, and you cook your own food, and like it's pretty cool because that would never happen in the United States. Actually, we might have talked about this before, but who gives a fuck? And that's pretty interesting because it's not back home. And here, the noodles, like what's kind of blew my mind was like some of my favorite food here is like the tin kwai, I'm talking
Yeah.
I'm talking like 40, 50, 60, 70 cent USD like beef noodles, and
The
it's
one
like actual hand-strung rice noodles, and it's just really good for like $1.
yeah.
The one we had outside our apartment.
Well,
When I
that
came
was-
back the other night.
Yeah, that's chow
Right.
mein.
Chow mein.
Yeah,
Same
very
thing,
good.
though.
Very good. Yeah, very
Yeah,
good. No,
same
very good.
thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like I remember before I got here going on YouTube and being like, I'm gonna look up like every Chinese food YouTube channel, and I was so excited to try like baozi and like different kinds of noodles, and then of course like the Panda Express Chinese what there was. So then I get here and everything I was excited to try, I was like, well, that was underappreciatedly like underwhelming. Like that fucking sucked. And then like, but then you kind of like after you've been here for a while and you make some Chinese friends, they'll take you to a place that you're like, oh wow, like this is amazing. Like the little crawfish dishes they have here with like the garlic and the spices, like that stuff's good. But it was kind of a mixed bag when I first got here. It was hard to find what was really good.
I like hot pot because I like how social it is. Like they just like you sit around with people, and I like that it's like everyone's sharing food. I feel like it needs more seasoning because it's just boiled. You can go and get some sauces, but I think you're right. Like once you know the good places where the good noodle places are or the good barbecue places are, like the barbecue food here has been amazing for me. Like that's one of my like favorites.
Did you guys ever get around to chicken feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like it, Jagger?
I mean, I won't order it, but if someone gives me one, I'll gnaw on a fucking chicken foot,
like
bro.
a dog.
Yeah, I will gnaw on one.
Dude, I used to date this Chinese girl back in California, and she would like. We didn't live together, but when I'd go to her house, she'd be cooking stuff, and she'd be like, "Yeah, you want some like rice and egg and noodle?" I'm like, "Yeah," and she'd be kind of boiling something, like, "Oh, what's in there?" She's like, "Don't worry about it," and I was like, "Okay, like whatever, you know." And so then she comes back into the room, and I'm like eating the noodles, and I can kind of see she's like reaching behind her and like turning and like doing this. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, okay, you're gonna think I'm weird, but like, because my family's Chinese, we eat chicken feet. And I guess she could just see from my face that I was like, were you born in a fucking barn? Like, what the fuck is this? Then I get here and like,
It's the norm, man.
It's kind of
everywhere.
normal, yeah.
Like, my ex had it. My ex would eat it, and I did the exact same thing. You just kind of like look because it was just so foreign to us. You're looking at it like,
what the?
She would eat like rabbit's head.
Oh god.
And the thing is, the head was the same size as a dog, and it looked like a kind of. It was just, but she was like, it's delicious. Try it, and you're like, no. The neck to the leg is where I stop.
Draw the line.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever try like the pig brain at the hot pot?
Yeah, I did.
That's actually, it's like texturally kind of unusual, right?
Yeah, that's
I've
why I
never
didn't
tried
like
it,
it.
unfortunately.
Same with the intestines.
Oh yeah, I never.
It's kind of rubbery.
Yeah, but they love it.
Yeah.
Well, so that's an interesting segue. So like, so aside from like girls, so you guys have both been here a year now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So aside from food, what's it been like dating in China compared to what it's been? And I asked because like I've speak to some of my friends sometimes, and like this thing will come up about like back home, if it's your first date with a girl, like, they'll chew and they'll cover their mouth like this, and like, because they want to be here, like, and like there's a couple of rules, right? Like back home, like you don't want to take a first date to like a Wingstop place, right? Like you don't want to, like, nothing kind of greasy or showy, like nothing where you got to use your hands, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing kind of messy. Here, like you'll go to some place with them, they'll just order noodles, they're like slurping the whole time, and it's like, so how do you like China? And then like, they'll like have like a whole bone in their mouth and just like spit that shit onto the plate, and you're like, so where'd you say your family was from in China? It's like, so what's your guys' experience been like? Likes, dislikes, interesting stories?
I remember a friend Isaac, shout out to Isaac. We were talking about how the girls eat just like that, like they eat. Like, so all you boys from the South, like,
it's kind of sexy sometimes, but then it can be a little annoying when you just hear.
Well, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's like the sexy part is they can eat a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like all you boys from the South, you're a big boy. You want you a woman that can eat.
Mm-hmm.
You get you a Chinese girl. I'm telling you, they have like these bottomless pits of stomachs. You get a bunch of food, they're destroy it.
They wake up, they're the same weight. You're just like, I'm jealous of that. Like,
right.
So I'd say, Jag, you've been single for the entire year, right? So you go first. How's your dating experience been?
I feel like you just gotta get used to it. Get used to the culture. I guess if you're trying to have a girlfriend, or if you're just trying to slay some pussy.
Shout out to Jagger's tag name in our group chat, 420 Pussy Slayer.
Either way, like I feel like in the Western world, it's like I kind of like more upfront, but here I feel like no matter your intention, it's still like you still gotta like talk to them a little bit, message them, see them before you anything. It's more of like you have to kind of prove yourself to not be like a old creep.
Or like a fuck boy.
Yeah, you have to kind of prove yourself a few dates. No matter, I'm not saying that I want to do anything. I'm not saying any intentions. It's just like that's just kind of how the culture is. Where I feel like the difference is back home, you can kind of like be like, "Yo, girl, what's up? What's fuck?" And she either
yes or no.
Yeah, the yes or no, and it's just like.
But I have had some experiences on Tinder where like, so usually on like, if you're on Tinder, you get the WeChat. Like they'll give you the WeChat, and then this girl, I had 2 girls just say, I was like, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And they were like, "Oh, can I come around yours?" And I'm like, "Why?" And I'll be like, "To have sex." And I'll be like, "Huh?" Like, for me, it's a bit too forward. Like I kind of want to meet up with them.
I feel like there's both of those things, right? Like both of those things happen, but it like, so this is a good question for Jagger, because it's like, so you have been single, right? So when has a girl ever dropped you that question of like, so do you want like a serious thing, or you just want to like, what do you respond to that as? Because I feel like it had to have happened by now, right? Like some girl on Tinder before you met them.
Yeah, of course, easy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you say? Are you just
I say, I don't know.
Okay.
I say I don't know every time.
So you're clever. You're more clever than I am. I'm just a disgusting liar.
I just say I don't know every time. Like, so usually when that happens, I'm like caught in the moment. I don't know what to say. So I usually just say like, I don't really know. I'm just kind of
that's like a smart play though, because it kind of leaves things in. What about you, Daniel? Like, what happens when that happens? Are you just kind of like, I don't know, I'm not sure.
What if they ask me like what?
Like before you've met them, right?
Before I've met them,
and they're like, so do you just want to like mess around? Do you want like a serious thing? Like, what's your typical response?
Like just messaging.
Yeah, not like you've met them already.
I'm too English, so I get really shy. Like when I speak to some of my other friends, they're a lot more like forward. Whereas for me, like we usually get to that conversation on the date. So on the date, it would kind of be like you're kind of like feeling what they want. I mean. Fuck it. I'll just be open. But like, I remember there was this one girl that I liked. We had sex, and then afterwards, I was like, "Oh, like, what do you want?" She was like, "I just want to like have fun and fuck. I just want to fuck you if whenever." And I was like, "Yeah, me too, man." Like, but I kind of liked her. But yeah, like for me, it's been I had 2 girlfriends kind of close back to back, and then the last 3 or 4 months, I've just been having a little bit of fun.
No, that's understandable.
But would you agree with me that dating here is I feel like a lot easier than back home?
Yes.
Like it's easier to like link up, like match with people on Tinder, on dating apps. Like it's easier, like people approach you a lot more.
I feel like a lot of girls here, even girls from like other countries, even other foreigners, they're more so open about giving people chances.
Yeah.
You know, it brings up like this. What I just thought of was I got a friend whose name I won't say. I don't think he'd mind, but I'm just gonna keep his name out of it. He's been here. Well, he left now, but he had been here for it would be 5 years if he was still here, and he would go back and forth from San Francisco. And I remember I would ask him, because his job, he could live anywhere. So I would always get so mad when he'd come back. I'd be like, so what are you doing this summer? He'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go to Germany and then probably like spend a month in Spain, maybe work a bit, ski. And I was like, okay. So like, but I asked him, I was like, why do you keep coming back to China? And he's like, honestly, the pussy. And I was like, well, like what makes it so unique to like other, because I've traveled a little bit, and especially in my like as I've still been in my 20s, I've traveled a little bit, not really lived anywhere as long as I have here or in LA, but I would have assumed up until a certain point, like, it must not be that hard getting good pussy around the world. But it's like this interesting dynamic of where like Chinese girls want to meet foreign guys for a multitude of reasons. Like maybe they're bored of Chinese dudes. Maybe they...
Well, should we just go on the topic on Chinese dudes and how different they are to us?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one.
Because there's kind of like a deal where the guys will pay for the girl to do everything, and the girl will kind of cook and clean. It's kind of like old school that way.
Not always.
Okay.
So there's a person that we all know, whose name I won't mention, but he does everything. Cooks, cleans.
I know who you're talking about.
So does everything, right? Pays for everything. Gives the girl an allowance.
Huh?
Yeah, and like, but like, I think it'd be few and far between people would say like, oh, that's a good one, because it's like he does everything, pays for everything, right? But then, so I remember being a little bit shocked by that, right? And then I would talk to Fiona about it and be like, is that normal here? And she was like, sometimes. And she said, especially, and obviously this is a bit different, but she said sometimes like a lot of girls from Hong Kong are like that. Like if they're pretty, It's the only thing. And like, so she was telling me a story of this guy that she knew that was really into one of the Miss Hong Kong contestants, right?
Okay.
So only thing about her was she was pretty. Didn't have a degree, nothing else, right? So this guy, this friend of Fiona's,
Chinese guy, right?
Yeah, Chinese, Hong Kong, but like from China, but lived in Hong Kong at the time, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, he kind of calls her up and is like, how do I say this in Cantonese? Because Fiona speaks Cantonese, he doesn't, right?
Okay.
And she's like, well, what are they asking? And she says like, it's like, and the question was like, oh, how much like money do you make? What kind of car do you drive? And she's like, I'm like, who are you talking to? Oh, just this girl. I mean, what do I say? And it's like, and then so later on, like they ended up dating for a bit, and like the conversation became like she would come to his house and be like upset about something. He's like, what's wrong? It's like, oh, Mindy's boyfriend bought her a Porsche, and they already have a house. So like, what are you gonna do for me? It's like, and but the guys will like, you know, if somebody said that to us three, we'd be like, I don't know, bitch, buy a bike. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but so here though, like they're so fearful, and it comes down to like the numbers game, right? Where there's 120 million more Chinese men than there are women. So then the men are like, oh, I don't want this like only pretty girl that likes me to break up with me. So I'll just give her whatever the fuck I have, right?
And they
that number though, that's their parents, but that culture has carried down.
Yeah,
that's so now most of the guys and girls our age is the same as most countries, 50-50, but that whereas more men, that was the last generation, but the culture does not change very quickly in any society, so that's carried down very strongly, right?
I have heard that if you're a man and you want to get married to a girl, like the parents will agree once you've bought an apartment and you own a car. Like I've heard that
as well.
Do you I don't know if both of you were there, but when we were at Tristan's the other day, he was telling us about the 180 rule. So the 180 rule is you have to have 1.8 million in your bank account. What is it? It's got to be 180 cm, which for Western listeners is like 6 feet tall. I don't know, 1.8 meters for people in Europe, and then I forget what the last 180 was.
The meter of your space.
So
the
space of your apartment has to be 180. So it's kind of high demands, right?
1.8 million is
a lot of money. I mean, in RMB,
1.8 million RMB.
Yeah,
surely that should be like one.
I'm doing the
no, I'm doing it 'cause I'm Jamie, right?
Ollie, pull it up, please.
So let's put it in USD.
263,000.
That's $250,000.
Yeah, $250,000.
That's a little bit more than $250,000.
And that's 200,000 quid.
And remember, that's just in the bank account. That's not like, oh, like I have this business, I got a car, I got a house. That's like, oh no, that's just my savings.
But was that what is that what the elite girls are looking for, or?
That's I'd say upper middle, like, so not really like elite, because these elite Chinese girls, like they're like, oh, you don't own like Merrill Lynch, like you know. Yeah. But so I would say upper middle, and I remember.
Yeah, you got to think that, you know, there's some fucking money in China, bro.
Filthy rich.
We got some.
I was gonna say, like, that's one thing about Shenzhen that I noticed living here for a year is I'm kind of used to it now, but I see Ferraris, Porsches, Lamborghinis on the regular. Like I see them.
Me and Ollie saw one last night.
Yeah,
oh, really?
A Lambo.
Saw a Lambo last night.
It's so weird because sometimes I'll be like getting DDs to work and I'll be like sitting in the back. I'm like, yo, I'm living the life right now. It's so easy to get like taxis and stuff, and I'm getting paid quite well. And then I look at sometimes like obviously like the poorer people, like the builders and stuff, and I'm like, wow, my life is considerably maybe like better than theirs right now. And then this fucking like 13-year-old kid just drives up with a Lambo like next to me. You're like, oh yeah.
Kind of reminds you like your place in the country. But it is interesting, like going back onto like Chinese men. It's like, you guys ever get onto a train with some girl, not even a girl you're dating, like some pretty Chinese girl that maybe you work with, and like what is the reaction, the general consensus reaction of like the dudes in the area on that train?
All stare at her.
Yeah,
right.
And
well,
you.
Okay, so story time. 2 weeks ago, I was in Guangzhou, which is a Cantonese city in South China in Guangdong province. It's the second biggest city here in Guangdong, right? And I was there for a work trip. I was with my coworker. You know, she's pretty, but just my coworker. We were just walking around because our hotel, we had the same hotel. And one night of walking around, we walked by a bunch of the dudes on the bikes that want you to get the ride. You know, the guys that sit out from the subway station, they're always looking at you like, get on, get on. I'm like, no, bro, I live right fucking here. But it was those guys, and me and her walked by, and there was like 13 eyes like staring at me. And I don't think she realized, but she was like, "Whoa, do you get stared at like this?" And I said, "No, it's because I'm walking with you." And she was like, "Whoa, I didn't even like realize that." I'm like, "Yeah, that happens like every time I walk by a bunch of people when I'm with a Chinese girl."
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I lived in Vietnam, I lived in Haiphong, so I was really used to being stared at because I didn't see another foreigner for 3 months one time. So I was like, to me, it doesn't bother me. Like sometimes it is like when people do stare at you, it can be a little bit like, dude, okay, I'm foreign. Whoopty fucking do.
Take a picture.
Yeah, but it doesn't really bother me too much.
What's like so like back on that whole topic of like coming here, having been here for a year, if you can remember like when your first like few weeks here, what was the toughest thing to adjust to culturally, or like not even toughest thing necessarily, but like the most where you looked at something and you're like, that's fucking weird.
I think for me it was like getting used to using my phone for everything. Like if you don't have like getting my WeChat sorted, getting my bank account sorted, like hanging out with people who are just like beep 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 everything, and you're just there like, hey, I've got cash, can I give you some cash? And they're like, yeah, sure.
So like
like
me.
that was so that took me a while. Like it takes a while to get set up in China. Once you're set up, then you're chilling. But
I have to agree with that. I was like every single day for like 2 weeks, someone's like, oh, you have to do this. I'm like, oh, where do I go? No, you just use your phone. And I'm like, okay, I downloaded it all in Chinese.
Of course.
And now my WeChat, I can just navigate it in Chinese. Like I found the movie theater we wanted and the correct movie we wanted, and it was all in Chinese. I didn't mess up once. But I would tell you this: about 6 months ago, right before January, right before COVID, I went to watch the Star Wars movie by myself because I was like, you know what, new Star Wars. I just want to pound some fucking beers and go watch some fucking Star Wars by myself, right? Because the movie theater is walking distance for me.
Yeah.
So I buy the ticket, walk there, get some of the fucking caramelized sugary popcorn bullshit. Then I show the woman the ticket and she translates on her phone, wrong theater.
Oh, fuck.
Right. But luckily, she just simply helped me buy the right ticket.
Okay.
But I still, lost like 40, 50 UN.
Yeah,
and
like $7.
I was like, big dicking myself, like, yeah, you motherfucker, you figured it out. Fuck yeah, you got this. You got this.
You're all feeling yourself,
I'm
like,
feeling
yeah.
myself, and I walk up, and she's like, just hands the phone, and the translation app just says, wrong theater.
Oh, my God.
Okay, I think that's a good like topic to discuss is what do you think of Chinese people? Like before, your preconceptions before and now, like living here a year.
So right before we do that, my weirdest thing to adjust to as someone that just only uses cash. I've told you guys this story, but for anyone listening that hasn't heard it, like it was my first week in Shenzhen. I'd been in Guangzhou and Shanghai for like about a week or two before. And my friend actually was living in this building. So we were crossing from exit C to here, right? That's why I was actually going to say earlier, it gives me great memories being here because this was the first place I was really in Shenzhen. And so we're walking here, and we get to the end of the crosswalk, and I just see this little girl, must have been 2.5, 3 years old, kind of tugs on her grandma. And they're in the middle of the crosswalk, that little four-way cross, right? She tugs on her grandma's dress. Her grandma just nods her head. Girl drops trow in the middle of a crosswalk at a red light. There's all these cars waiting. Takes a big, fat, steaming shit. Right in the middle of the crosswalk, and nobody's
over
honking.
there,
Right there.
No way.
Just takes a big ass dump.
I thought when you said this was like somewhere else.
No, dude, it was right there. And this grandma just has some tissues in her bag and pulls it out. And I'm just like standing there staring with my mouth open, like, does nobody see this? People are walking by, like whistling and shit, like normal fucking day. And I asked my friend Brad, I was like, dude, Brad, is this shit happen? He's like, we'll talk about it later. It's like,
yeah, I've seen. Like people, like I've never seen a poo, but I've seen like them urinate in the street. Like they'll literally, it's usually just young kids. They'll just squat, wee, and then just walk on.
It's weird because it's like you could say that maybe like they're I don't know. I'm conceptualizing and it's total bullshit. But if you were to ask someone like, why do you guys do that? And it's like, oh, like, well, we save on diapers. And it's like, well, then why do you guys have fucking gloves everywhere when you go eat with your hands? That's a fucking gigantic waste of plastic. Like, I don't know. Anyways.
So yeah, so a lot of Chinese people, when they eat greasy food, they always wear gloves. And for us, we always like go like, just use your hands. But actually, it does kind of make sense sometimes. Like when you're on your computer afterwards or something. I suppose you can just wash your hands, but
Right. But in the States, if you brought out some plastic gloves, especially in California, everyone's going to be like, why the fuck are you using plastic? There's
that's
fucking
true.
whales in the
That is
ocean.
true.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, I completely agree with. It is a huge waste of plastic when you can just wash your hands and eat with them.
So apart from them
But
shitting in the
whatever.
street, what do you think of Chinese people?
I think
They're pretty good.
I think generally on a just like straight average, most of them are just super nice to me. Beyond nice, because I'm a foreigner usually. Generally, of course, like a lot of times when I feel like I run into someone who's like has a job to do, like a security guard, and some of the rules bullshit, and they may have been told to do this, or they may not have. Sometimes they're an asshole then, but at the same time, I can't really communicate with them and be like, yo, did your boss tell you this? Like, is this a rule?
Yeah.
Or are you just saying this because I'm a foreigner? Like, I can't really communicate. Like, sometimes I feel like some security guards are just like, don't get fired.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes
They're just trying to flex.
sometimes they're just like, okay.
Yeah.
They
Like,
just
no.
don't want to.
Yeah.
I think my perceptions changed a lot because when I first got here, I was like, "Oh, everyone's so mean," but it was just like a miscommunication thing. And like as I've been able to like understand and like have general conversations with people, like especially workers, because like Fiona gets mad at me sometimes, where she's like, "Why?" Like they said no, and I'm like, they're just saying no because they want to say no. Which like it's like anywhere else in the world, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's like anywhere in the world, like, you know, there's people that. Like, people are either nice or they're not. But I think generally, like, the general consensus here is, like, people are pretty fucking chill. Like,
I would say that 90% of Chinese people that I've met have been like so friendly and so nice, and there's been a 10% that are like, I got a DD the other day, and I stupidly put in the wrong address, so I changed it, and I was trying to explain to him, changed it. This guy was speaking under his breath for about 10 minutes, and I know he was talking shit about me.
of course, yeah.
And you kind of get frustrated because it's his job. Like, for me, it was just like, I've changed the destination. It's actually further away, so you're making more money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He was just like saying stuff. And then like, I'm always friendly, regardless if they're like mean to me. I'm always like, all right, bye-bye, nice to meet you. And he was like, da-da-da, timbledong. And I was like, oh yeah, he's talking shit again. So there's like frustrating, but usually it's a language barrier thing.
So, like, on the token of potentially rude people, because we're running short on time, I wanted to ask, I'd heard a story that maybe one of you guys know that somebody almost, like, got into a fight at this place that we go to. You guys heard anything about this?
Nah.
Yeah, I heard
Okay,
some.
so I know about the person that it happened to, and this person's hilarious. People that are listening in Czech know exactly who I'm talking about. And I'll tell a quick story. There was one day where I woke up, and most of my group chats, so for those of you that are out of the country, we use an app called WeChat, right, that everyone uses here, and you just need it.
Everybody.
You need it to survive. That's where your money is, everything, right? And what will happen is, as you get in more ingrained in communities, they'll add you into group chats. If you go to a restaurant, a foreign place, they're like, hey, add our WeChat. This is where we post deals. Most of my groups, I just mute, unless it's like our friends group one. There's a few that I won't because they're important. And one of these ones was for a big party at some building. It
No,
was
it's
like
a swimming pool. It's just a swimming pool.
Pool
Swimming
party.
pool, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to mention the pool part, but okay.
No, it's a swimming pool.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
rooftop
okay.
swimming pool group, and
Okay.
people will go into the group to say, hey, is it free this day, or can I bring my friends,
Okay.
or maybe they'll make events.
So there was some girl in that group that was just a thirst ball. Like, every week she was like, who's this handsome guy?
Just try to add me on WeChat.
Hey. So like so anyways, this one guy in the group apparently tried to holler at her, and I woke up to this like string of messages, right? And the main one that I keyed in on was like, is anyone watching this shit? So I go back and you can scroll up and look, and this girl hops on the chat. She's clearly upset by her texting style. She's like, this guy, he come on me with date. He smell very bad, not shower, long time. I don't like him. He make me pay. And hilarity begins to ensue, where there's just like this back and forth argument going on between multitude of parties. And I remember kind of scrolling through, and I saw something about a lawyer, and it just got intense. And it like, and this guy like knows a police officer here, and he tries to get him involved. Basically, long story short, they kicked these people out of the group, and it just became a meme. Like we were like laughing about it
Yeah.
for days. So this guy had apparently almost gotten into a fight with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a good segue. Is what do you think about the community and foreigners in Shenzhen?
You good?
I think it's pretty lit. Like, I feel like it takes a certain kind of person to just be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna move to China.
Yeah.
So especially from the States, because we don't really see a lot about Chinese media. We don't really see anything about it, so it's quite different when you get here. But from my experience, like most people I met has been pretty fucking cool. It's like I like to say it's like a barrier. So for example, if there's only a certain amount of people who will say "fuck it," I'm gonna move to fucking China, so that they cross a barrier.
But then
So-
I would say the other side is my life sucks here. Fuck it, I'm gonna move to
Yeah.
China, and then
Correct.
you get the loot. The
Of course, but I'm trying to be positive.
no, I'm just saying that there's like really, like you said, really cool, interesting people that you would never meet back in your
There's a
normal
spectrum.
life.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, there's people that you go, I can see why you moved here.
Though there's a, like Jagger's saying, there's a spectrum, right? Like there's some people that are just vagabonds. There's some people that are sycophants. Like some people are just like on their like fourth divorce. They're 50-year-old white dudes from Texas,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna move to goddamn China."
Right.
So you see like every part of the rigmarole.
Yeah, that's true. Like all the people I met's cool. Like especially coming from a small town.
Where?
Drink.
Yeah, I'm from a small town, so I don't get to meet a lot of people from other countries. So that's been probably one of my favorite parts about living in China thus far.
It
Interesting.
took me a while to find a good group of people. Like for me, it took me 6 months to find you and Joe and other people. And then once I found them, it kind of all people just linked up. And now I feel like we have a really big community of people where like you can go out and there's just so many different people, especially when we've had like through this summer, we've had so many different like birthday parties. And like you
Yeah.
just kind of now know like our group, which is kind of good because it's like you've always got people that you can hang out with, but it's kind of bad because now I don't feel like I'm meeting as many new people as I was. So it's the flip side, but I think for the most part, I say 80% of the foreigners are cool. 20% are fucking weirdos.
Yeah, there's some weirdos. But also, I think a lot of the weirdos or the people who are like, my life sucks, fuck this. I feel like they're in some of the smaller cities.
Yeah,
From my experience.
Yeah, maybe. I've only ever lived in the big cities and visited the small ones.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, like, in my time here, it's like a big like common denominator was age. I noticed like a lot of my older friends, and when I say older, like I mean obviously I'm 28, but like some of my friends would be like 36, 37,
Mm-hmm.
and just like a lot of them would came here because they were like, life was just tough back home. I wanted a new experience, like bad breakup, whatever. And then like so before I met you guys, I was actually hanging out. Like most of my friends were mid-30s, and like
Oh.
not at all a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
it
of
was
course.
just kind of, but it was interesting how like they all had different reasons for coming. But I would say like, and so they were all here either for multiple years or just first or second year, and it would be like a lot of times, like maybe if I had to put a number on it, like 65 to 70% of the time. Bad breakup, life at home was tough. I came out here. Still cool people, right?
Mhm.
But then there was that whole thing. But then with the younger people, I've noticed it's a little bit of like what Jagger was saying, like, fuck it, I'm gonna move to fucking China, right? Like, and I've noticed that like in the younger crowd, there's that, and then there's vagabonds, and then straight up fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
Like
I-
every once in a while.
Like I'll give you an example. Like our friend Johnny.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's cool.
Like she's like very lively, very lovable girl. And
She's
it's
like 1,000 followers on Instagram.
yeah. But it's just like you wouldn't think like she's just like tall blonde girl. It's just a type of person you wouldn't really think would just up and move to China, but here they are.
And she loves it
Yeah.
here too.
Yeah.
So
There's also a lot of Russians here.
So I think we're going to go into the next segment of the show, which is the question of the week.
It's time of the question. Sorry. It's time for the question of the week.
A quick question.
So I think the question of the week is I'm going to ask one question to Ali. You ask. Oh, God, I'm so tired today. Ask one question to Ali as well. Anything you want. Is there any questions that you can think of?
You can go first.
Mine's like, we kind of rushed this today. Mine's kind of basic, but what is the biggest life lesson you've learnt in China? Or like one thing you've really learnt about yourself that you didn't know? Or
About myself?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to give me 10 seconds to think about it.
Okay, Jagger.
And then Jagger, you can ask yours.
Ask mine to who? I don't really know, so I'm just gonna talk to Daniel for a second. Yeah. I didn't really plan a question. To be honest.
All right.
Maybe I'll skip mine.
How long do you
and
think
we'll
you'll live in China for?
I have a general plan at the moment. When I first got here, I was like, I'll just live here till it sucks, and then I'll get out of here. Now I have like a general idea of like I've been here for a couple years, have made some moves that, like obviously now I have a girlfriend, and we're probably gonna get married soon. And so now I'm kind of thinking like, all right, we've come to that like discussion of like, all right, we're gonna live here, we're gonna live back home, and like we've gone through it a few times, and like in terms of like if I was gonna have kids here, I'd probably want to go back home. So it just depends. Like it could be another 5 years, could be another 2, right? Anywhere from 2 to 5, just depending on circumstance and like work and everything else.
So I got another good question. If you didn't live here or the States, where would you want to live?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. I would like to answer that one as well.
Okay, you
go
can.
ahead.
So a few options are in my back pocket. Like right now, I want to stack up that fucking dough. I want to make some fucking money. I want to buy some gold chains, but I mean maybe not gold chains, but you can actually make you can make a lot of money here. I'm like, yeah, a lot of fucking hookers. But I kind of want to stay around till I can meet some of my financial goals. And some cool places to live for me would be like, one, I want to live somewhere cold. So if I want to stick around Asia and teach, then for me it's going to be Seoul, South Korea. Still Asia, Korea's cool, but I can get me some fucking cold. Because I've only lived places that's fucking hot as fuck my whole life. And Shenzhen's even hotter than Alabama, so...
It's so hot at the moment.
Right, and then also I wouldn't mind living in Japan. I wouldn't mind living in Spain. I wouldn't mind living in Portugal.
Number one. What would be the one place?
Like right now?
If you could live, let's say 2 years, you're going to...
Like if I had to just go somewhere in 2 years?
Pack up right now.
Not Asia, right?
Anywhere.
Let's say not Asia.
You said
No,
anywhere
just
but America.
Anywhere but America and China.
Right.
So anywhere but those two.
Russia?
Probably South Korea. But I'm just afraid that by then I want to explore a new culture, and then I have to say like
I think Korea would be really different culture to hear. Remember Japan?
Right.
I think it'd be kind of a little bit more similar to like Japan.
Right. Well, Japan would be cool too, but also maybe like Spain.
Yeah.
Somewhere where I could have a semi non-stressful job, make just enough to get by, experience a new culture.
That's definitely Spain.
Yeah.
For me, it's tough because it's kind of like what Jagger was saying, where like there's places I haven't visited yet that I like in my mind. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to live there, but I haven't been there, right? So like off the top of my head, I would say Japan, but I haven't been there, so I don't know if that's like a good answer. Spain also, like I have been there, that would be great. But as I thought about it, New Zealand for sure.
Ooh.
New Zealand would be the spot. I've been there before, loved it. The people are great, the culture's awesome. It's just a really fun place to be. It's beautiful. They're really like ecologically sustainable. Like it's a nice place to be.
Did you go to the Shire?
I did not. No, I didn't make it out there. But they have these like preserved islands that are just like people have been like living there for like 500 years and like don't touch nature at all. Like, and it's got like that, and then also cities. There's just like a lot to do there.
Weird, I've got 2 friends that live there. They said it's amazing, but everyone that's lived there says they hate it.
Really?
It's really weird.
Well, I guess I have to rescind my fucking answer then. I don't know.
I think it's like once you've done everything there, because it's such a small island. Once you've done everything, you're kind of, what else is there to do? Whereas in China, I feel like you could live here for 5-10 years and not see everything.
Well, that's kind of like China's just so big.
Yeah.
Shout out to the late Anthony Bourdain on his show. What was his show called?
No reservations.
No.
I know.
The one on Netflix.
I know what Jagger's about to say.
CNN.
I feel like I know what he's about to say.
The one on CNN.
Can I quote what you're about to say? So he said on his show that you could travel all around China and not taste every food because it's so different.
Yeah.
Some Asian. Shout out.
Essentially, he said like, I'm cool with just going to a few cities in China because I know I can die and never experience the entirety of the culture because it's too big and too old.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but you were close. But it is true that it's like, I remember him saying that too.
Well, it's just like the UK or Europe in general or the United States. Like my coworker, she said, she hit it on the nail. She goes, I want to go to the United States, but I won't go travel there. I'll get a visa, or a student visa, and I'll live there for a few years because it's too big.
Yeah, definitely.
It's too different. Living in Alabama is just so much different than LA.
But I will say, if America was an option, that would be my number one. But okay, so back to your other question before we gotta go because we're running short on time here.
And we're about to go see Tenet.
Yeah,
So we can
shout
talk
out
about
to
that next week, maybe.
Christopher Nolan. Oh,
Our homie.
yeah, that's my boy, dog. He calls me Al. Nobody else calls me Al.
All right.
But yeah, what have I learned about myself? It's tough to say, but I think what I have learned is I'm more picky about pretty much everything than I thought I was. Because I remember before, because I'd never like lived for more than like a few months in a foreign country. Like I'd done summers, like Europe, had spent like almost a half a December, and like, well, I've traveled a little bit, right? But never lived anywhere as long outside of America as I have in China. And I just noticed like some things pissed me off that I totally would not have thought, and it might be with like age. Like, so I think I'm more picky than I realized I was.
I think I learned that from you and our friend Colby, actually, is to be like you can be more picky about stuff. I've definitely learned that from you, like just being, for me recently, to say no more.
Yeah.
And like, or be like, actually, I want more money, or I don't like it this way. I feel like, yeah.
It is weird how back home, like some jobs you'll have, like if they notice you're putting more effort in, not every job, but like some places they like appreciate that and show that to you. In China, they're like, hey, that's the workhorse. Put more bags on his back. You know what I mean? And not everywhere is like that, but a lot of places are like, let's get in while it's hot. And then quick story before we cut that one off. My friend Eli, shout out to Eli. He worked in the restaurant industry here, and I learned a lot about like business in China from him. We would just have these discussions when he worked at a place downtown, and he had told me that in China, it's considered a good business move. Say that us three open a company, right? And you and I realize if we cut Jagger out, we can make more money, right? So in China, that's considered a good move. Even if that's your friend, they're like, oh, but you and I can make more money. Even if we both know it's a short-term 6-month thing, or if we keep him for the next 6 years, over that time frame, it's going to be more profitable. They're more short-term right now, get it while it's hot, get the fuck out of here, which is a product of their population and their market, right?
Also their culture, like they don't really have religion here. Their religion is money, right? They saw that there's a YouTube video where this guy says like, that's our religion. We just want money. We want to get rich.
It's funny.
I've spoken to a lot of Chinese people, and it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like their main goal is that they want to be wealthy and they want to live a comfortable life, which is obviously like most of our goals. But that is their like number one thing that they want.
It's funny you say that because I remember asking, like, he and I were having this big discussion. It was that same time that Eli and I were talking about that, and we were talking about how we get really annoyed on the sidewalks when bikers will come up to you and be like, get the fuck out of my way.
Gets fucking
I hate that
pissed.
shit.
Like, he doesn't leave. He doesn't move out the way,
Dude,
and I get so awkward.
Swear to God, given the proper opportunity, I would shove my fucking size 12 so far up their ass that you could see my fucking footprint in the back of their teeth. I hate that shit. But so I asked him one time, like, why do you think that is? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. He's like, they're just moralists, and it's not like an ethical thing. It's just lack of religion, and which to a certain extent can bleed into like your personal consciousness and like the way you treat people. Who knows, right? Because in Japan it's not like that, right?
No one rode scooters.
But okay, fucking Jagger. Okay, so let's say that you're walking in the street.
Short answer.
Let's say that you're walking in the street and some guy's behind you. Is he gonna bump your shoulder? Or is he gonna politely kind of?
No.
Move?
They the thing about in Japan is they have a side of the street. So if you walk on the wrong side of the street, people will like look at you. You have to walk on. If you're walking one way, you have to be on the right, and the other way on the left.
Right.
If you want to walk past people, you can walk past people.
No, so me and Isaac
So it's like an unwritten rule, right?
Well, me and Isaac rented bikes in Osaka, and we want to take a shortcut because there's a bunch of people on the sidewalk. We just got on the main road, and we were like kind of freaking out. We're like, we're gonna go to jail. We're gonna get hit, and like the car behind us like came up, just stopped behind us, and like almost like he was just protecting us.
That's sick.
He didn't honk once. He like we would stop at the red light. He would stop, kind of make sure we were good. Like I swear it was. No one honked at us. Like one time we were on that main stretch for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, out here they'll just fucking hit you in the booty and then stare at you for like 10 minutes. It's like,
right.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're running low on time.
All right, guys. So we'll try and be more consistent, and hopefully we'll do one next week. So over and out.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on. Shout out to Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Big dicks in your ass are bad for your health.
Yeah. Remember that, guys. Subscribe to us.